Okay, so I think we can start. So welcome everybody to the side event on building the information and communication technology infrastructure for multi-stakeholder climate action with blockchain technology. Okay, I have to put down the volume for the echo. My name is Miroslav Polzer, and I'm the Executive Director of the International Association for the Advancement of Innovative Approaches to Global Challenges, which is a civil society organization based in Austria. We are accredited to the United Nations through the Department for Public Information and ECOSOC and the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We are also a founding member of the Climate Change Coalition, which is the leading global network of experts in the field of blockchain for climate action. And today's event has the aim to showcase what our organization is doing in the field of multi-stakeholder climate action and youth empowerment for climate action, and also the Climate Change Coalition, what the Climate Change Coalition is doing, because we are organizing already a series of events on the topic of blockchain for climate action with the Climate Change Coalition. We've started at the United Nations, and it was founded in Paris in 2017, in December 2017, on the fringes of the One Planet Summit, and we had events in San Francisco last year at the California Global Climate Action Summit, and also in Katowice recently at the UN Climate Change Conference. And we are joined at our event by virtual participants in Berkeley and also in Athens. And we have also some knowledgeable experts here in the round. And we want to have a very informal consultation about this topic of how to use blockchain technology for providing everybody, and especially youth, meaningful and rewarding engagement opportunities in climate action. Perhaps a brief thematic introduction before we go over to Matthew Slater from the Credit Commons. He is now living in Athens for a while, and there it is already 11 o'clock in the evening, so he asked to be have his presentation relatively quickly. So what's the background of today's event? Why is it such a relevant topic? So as you are all aware, climate crisis is terrible, and it's really the most pressing issue of global community. And for the last decades, we have thought that this is an issue that national governments will deal with and solve, and the United Nations, as the body of the national governments, will solve this. But we see it's not being solved. The response to the climate crisis is not effective if we have only the governmental stakeholders playing. So, and now is a paradigm shift, which has been also recognized by the United Nations with the Paris Agreement, where the governmental stakeholders welcome the action of non-state actors, non-party stakeholders. But it's then a question how we get really everybody engaged. How do we get this new thinking to the people, this understanding that everybody needs to take action in everyday resource use decisions, mobility decisions, voting decisions, and how can we create meaningful and rewarding engagement opportunities so that people who take action in this field and devote their life and work to these topics can also have a living out of it. And how do we create all the mass mobilization and empowerment for climate action? And the question is, who is the global leader in this? Does anybody have an idea? Who is leading this non-state actors coordination and empowerment for climate action? The Paris Agreement is this intergovernmental process, but actually they don't have really the human potential, the financial potentials, or the economic power to really implement it. So, any other ideas? Yeah, the fact is that here is really a leadership gap. Nobody is really leading global coordination and empowerment of non-state actors for climate action. And so it's time for innovation, and it's time for innovative approaches to global challenges. And it's time for our multi-stakeholder partnership for global climate action empowerment, GLOCHA. We have 3 pillars. One is culture, one is technology, and one is organization. And there are many elements how we need to combine technological and social innovation, institutional innovation, to really get everybody on board, and that we really, as a global community, effectively address the climate crisis. And the initial plan was to highlight now in this side event the role of cities and how this new technology of blockchain can help cities to finance their sustainable development goals related action. But we will go first to Matthew later, as he is already, it's very late in Athens. And Matthew, please tell us your views on what needs to be done for climate action and how these new technologies can help us to empower everybody to take action. Please, and I will now put on the volume. So, can you hear us?
Thank you very much. I just discovered that my laptop battery is right down to 4%, so I need to come back to you in one moment.
Shall we then ask Ben first to present? It's
yeah.
Okay, then let's do as we have planned, that Ben presents us what the city of Berkeley is doing in innovative financing for affordable housing.
Well, certainly. So, you know, you're exactly right. There is a leadership vacuum when it comes to addressing so the fundamental needs expressed in the 17 SDG goals. And so, my career, I worked in environmental finance, and very difficult because we relied on tax credits and sort of incomplete business models. And so many of the same issues involved in housing are also, of course, the environment. So on the city council in Berkeley, you know, we were confronted by the fact that our ability to finance homeless housing and affordable housing and housing in general was going to be negatively impacted by the Trump tax cuts, because we rely on corporate tax debt to fund these things. So we decided to take it to the blockchain. And you know, we did deep research, and we discovered that if you could issue debt, issue bonds via a distributed ledger with network accounting, you could speedily record ownership, and therefore cut out many of the middle people and lower costs tremendously. And so that became what they call the Berkeley ICO, the micro bonds, and it's pretty amazing. And there's more elements to it. I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but essentially this is a new form of raising debt that lowers the cost of buying a bond to the cost of issuance. And in this instance, because it's instantaneous record notification and everything else, the cost to buy a bond goes from $5,000 or even $100,000 to 25 cents, 15 cents, 1 cent, because the cost of issuing it goes down to 0.00035 cents. And then, of course, to the issuer, just the administrative cost goes down by more than 50%. And we have AAA credits. You can imagine a country without great credit, or a city engaging in this. And this is how you could fund EV infrastructure, et cetera, on and on and on. So I can go on. Should I go on, Miro?
Or perhaps let's make it interactive, and let's see whether there are questions here from the audience on this issue. Because it's very relevant also for financing renewable energy projects or other climate resilience infrastructure projects that will be needed. It's really a lot of investment needed, and especially needed on the city level. And there it's then the question how to mobilize the funding in such vulnerable places which otherwise would have difficulties to succeed on the bonds market and so.
Yeah, I wonder how that could be applied in something like the World Bank for developing countries.
Okay, so it's funny. The World Bank called me after I first published the microbonds legislation, and then they did their own pilot. So the way it would work, let's say you were doing a project like a desalination plant, or a large project, and instead of going to a few investors and having the vagaries of the market determine your returns, you could literally crowdfund to the people of that country in $5 denominations or around the world. So you diffuse risk and fund a project that way. And that way people own a fraction of the asset and get returns. So this is what China is exploring right now with the One Belt, One Road initiative. And I'm in talks with them, helping them think that through. Because their goal is to build up markets along the train route in all those 5 continents where there are no markets. And so one way to do that, of course, is the blockchain allows you to have indelibly recorded fractional ownership of the project. So you and your family can invest whatever you can get together and get returns for 20 years, 40 years. So that's one way. The model we did in Berkeley was meant to be microcosmic and expanded for large capital projects, because that's what the world needs.
Question.
Wonderful, yeah. Please, if you could also introduce yourself.
My name is Ratna Kalmakar. I represent an organization called Peace for International Reconciliation for Peace. My question is, it could be naive. I want to know how do you recognize, how do you start the funding process? And the organization is blocked, DLT.
Did you hear the question?
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand.
I said, suppose, we want to start a project. How do I apply for loans or crowdfunding? How does one get started?
Okay, so there are a number of vendors out there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a process. I mean, I could help you figure it out. But there are a number of vendors operating to help projects get financed via this method. Tokenizing investment into capital projects, whether equity or both.
Any further questions? Everything clear?
So how would you work with large investment banks such as like Goldman Sachs or the Goldman Sachs of the world?
Yeah, so the Goldman Sachs of the world have a love-hate relationship with this business because it cuts them out. They make their money in the opaque, hidden world of administration of money, and so the blockchain sort of pulls the curtain off of that stuff and cuts out many of these operators. So they're not in love with it, but you see they have no choice because at this point, corporations are issuing their own forms of tokenized debt offerings, and JP Morgan just announced its creation of its own JPM coin for settlement among its corporate clients. So, and Goldman Sachs also has acquired majority interest in a gold-backed cryptocurrency. So they're getting involved, But the good news is that they won't ever be able to dominate it and make it so top heavy that the people of the world have to remain in poverty. That era is over, I promise you. And also I want to say this regarding these you know, the UN and the World Bank and these climate, so much of our climate activity and our climate destruction is rooted in our previous economic systems and supply chains, oil, coal, etc. Now, the problem has been traditionally, when you're unlocking new markets, how do you really control the supply chains really happening? So one way the blockchain allows you to do this is the creation of programmable markets. You know, leveraging smart contracts, these if this then that technique and formula for supply chain. So you could actually go negotiate. You can negotiate a green infrastructure project that doesn't pollute, all the way back to the trucking, to the labor, to everything, all the way in advance, and lock it in and pre-program it, and actually finance that. So it's wonderful for creating new supply chains that have more benevolent consequences.
Yeah, this is a very inspiring example of how we can really get significant progress and people power also to this Sustainable Development Goals action. If you could perhaps tell us also, when people want to learn more about your work, where could they find it on the internet?
Oh yeah. So I mean, there's many articles about our project that we did in Berkeley and the ramifications of it. But then going further, the entire thesis that buttresses what we did there and now serves my work in the world now is online. It's called the Smart Path. So if you just Google Ben Bartlett, my name, and Smart Path, it comes right up. And there you'll see just the layout. And remember the benefits of programmable currencies. You can actually program the dollar or whatever currency we're talking about here and say it can only be used in these purposes. It can only go to this green vendor, only to this person digging a well in this country. You know, and it's revolutionary with real-time notification to multiple people. It's this is truly, I believe, the way to shift the global economy in the working people and for the environment.
Wonderful. Congratulations, and looking forward to stay connected.
I would love to talk with you afterwards. And I'm also wondering,
to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Susanna. I'm one of the co-founders of Peace Accelerators, and I also work with Todd Morley, the former co-founder of Guggenheim Partners, on this new venture called Y2X, which is a merchant bank, investment bank, funding large-scale impact or infrastructure projects. And I know he's done a lot of thinking around this as well, so I'd love to introduce you to Todd. And
that'd be an honor. That'd be super exciting. You know, just so you know, at this point, I've now consulted with about 4 different countries, 3 or 4 different corporations. I advise 7 venture funds because this is, I've wholly devoted myself to delivering this new economy, and people are into it, definitely. And I just put my email in the little group chat thing.
Yeah. Can you
Okay.
see ben@bartlett.com. Smart Path is the super. Thank you very much, Ben.
Thank you, Miro. So honored. And I want to tell you guys, you young people and students, just stay in this, because you know the projections are of a massive die-off. The projections are of a depletion of water. The projections are of the majority of the human population being assetless and landless in the next 40 years. So the time is now. You have to act, and you have the brilliance and the energy to do it. You've got to do it. And I thank you, and consider me a resource.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you. And let us turn with this to Matthew, who is also an expert for local economy and economic innovations from a very systemic perspective, inventing new local currencies and making it an empowerment for sustainable development goals action, but also climate action. Matthew, the floor is yours. The screen is yours.
Thank you very much. I feel like my presentation couldn't be any more different to Ben's. I'm a self-taught software engineer, and I build and maintain software for more than 300 community currency projects. And it's free and open source software. And the idea is that each of them can run their own infrastructure. Also, I've written a massive online open course called the Money and Society MOOC, which aims to get to the heart of the phenomenon of money. So that's my expertise. The local currencies that my software supports are not blockchains. Instead, each one has its own ledger and its own currency. And they're issued not as tokens out of nothing, as most Bitcoin tokens are, but more like peer-to-peer interest-free credit. It's a very, very simple ledger system, but it makes the participants think about where money comes from and how much it really costs to issue. So it's like money in the local system, except that you can't spend it out of the local system, and you can only spend it with people in the local system who issued it. This is really good because it builds community. You might have 100 people in an average one of these systems. They're all doing things with each other. It encourages things like the sharing of goods and cars and food. And more generally, it encourages neighbors to build wealth together. And in my view, it's very important if we're thinking about a climate ravaged future, we need to be talking about relocalizing everything. And that includes relocalizing money and supply chains. And these systems also feel different. People are working with these, not tokens, they're units of credit. And they're earning them and spending them, but they have a sense that they're not scarce. And that makes them less stressful objects to hold. And people actually enjoy just the feel of using this money. And though these systems were very popular in the 90s, they didn't grow to take over the world. Many people hoped that local exchange trading systems and time banks would eventually be able to displace bank money. That's the money that's issued as interest-bearing debt by banks to most of the population. But the LET systems never managed to do that. I was able for 3 or 4 years to live from my work within the LETs. And that means I was a guest. I traveled as a nomad, visited many, many LETs and lived from it, but without ever taking any resources out. It was an exchange because I was providing the software and they were providing me with food and accommodation. What I would like to do is to connect all of these systems together so that all the local currencies are interoperable, so that maybe there would be an exchange within the middle, or maybe there would be a coin in the middle that would enable local currencies in one area to trade with local currencies in another area. I don't think it's possible, thinking about the future, to imagine the economy that I imagine when money is issued as debt by rich people, rented to poor people. Money is a fundamentally extractive system. And so I'm looking to blockchain at the moment as a way to provide the infrastructure to scale up community currencies. And so we could have an economy where there was no scarcity of money. If that sounds odd to those of you who've done an economics degree, yes, it is odd. This is a different monetary paradigm and it's entirely out of fashion. But it's very sound, I can assure you.
That's interesting.
I would like to sing. Sorry?
It's interesting that you think your
Okay, if we go to
I love what you're working on.
I'm listening for your question.
I was just making a comment that it's interesting that you think your presentation is that much different from Ben's, but I see some correlation in terms of using the blockchain technology to create more of a circular economy.
Yeah, and also people empowering one another.
And the decentralized nature of financing solutions. But
so thank you for your question. My audio is too bad to hear what you're saying in the room.
Have you heard of Bancor?
So I'll proceed.
Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah, you proceed, and then we will have a discussion. So about 3 minutes. You
okay.
have. Seems to be very delayed.
So I was just finishing my presentation. In my view, if we were to be able to expand an economy based on local currencies, we would have no problem with scarcity of money, which is a massive economic problem now. We would be, instead of disintermediating trust or cutting out the banks, we would be distributing trust amongst our neighbors for the issuance of money. And that means as well that the money would be governed by ourselves and our neighbors. I know it's very utopian. And finally, Ben finished with an exhortation to the young people in the room. And I'd like to finish with a similar exhortation, which is in the future that we have, that we're looking at with catastrophic climate change coming. I wonder how much our current financial system is going to serve us. And people in economics need to be focusing not so much on financial instruments, but on the real assets, on the food and the things we need to live every day. That's where I would like to see more attention. Okay, so now we have a minute or two for questions, I hope. I'll turn off my video in case it improves the sound.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Matthew. And I think that you are not so far away from your vision, really, from what Ben has said. And we here all agree that it's the local level, it's the people with their resources and their needs that will drive the future economy and the future climate action. So thanks for your opening up also our innovation space and our space for thinking. And Susanna, I wanted to ask you something.
I was just curious if you've heard of Bancor, the decentralized exchange where community currencies can exchange with one another. And then also native token is another alternative as well that also uses the Bancor protocol.
Matthew, did you hear?
Yes, I'm very well aware of the Bancor protocol, and I know Will Ruddick and Grassroots Economics who are using it in Africa.
Okay, very good. Are there any other questions for Matthew or for Ben?
Again?
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. It was very insightful, Matthew. And, we hope to hear more from your work in the future and to see whether we can also connect somehow. And with this, I will proceed a little bit in our in the presentation of our work also and what we are aiming to achieve. And before we then also turn to further discussion. So, as I've said, there is a need for, there's a gap, a leadership gap in terms of non-state actors coordination for climate action. And we think that this should look like. And we have for this 3 visions also. One of the visions is that there should be really a physical space, a co-working space, an ecosystem where these different stakeholders come together and work on globally relevant initiatives together. And for this, we have the idea of the We the People Center and the Global Climate Action Center, which could be located here south of the UN. There is this land, probably you are aware of that. Here are 3 blocks of empty land, which are going to be built up. The city has already given the permission to the owner of the land to build their 3 residential buildings and 1 commercial building. And the 1 commercial building, I think we could try to set up there a Global Climate Action Center, which would be also a Global Climate Action Data Center and incubator for climate entrepreneurship initiatives, for an event space and cultural space and office space for different initiatives to come together. And it could be also somehow visualizing to the world that there is a place really where there is leadership, where people are coming together for climate action. The second vision that we have in order for this global climate action to function is mass mobilization, that we have to develop the information systems, the apps, the tools, so that people are supported in their everyday climate action and receiving information guidance, but also tools to document what they are doing. And so some kind of global climate action app should be on everybody's mobile device. This is our second vision. And the third vision is an Agenda 2030 marketplace. It's a mechanism, it's an e-commerce platform, so to say, where people will, individuals, but also entrepreneurs, climate entrepreneurs, will be able to document what they are doing for the climate, and then based on different combinations of data from the mobile apps, from Earth observation data, from citizen science data, and crowd evaluation, that these people, these stakeholders who take climate action would receive certified SDGs impact, which would then be the basis for financial remuneration with this climate finance mechanisms that are being established, like the Green Climate Fund or Global Philanthropy or carbon tax revenue funds, which is really the big new economy of the coming decades. And for this, we need the information system. We need a platform which really documents and verifies what the impact of different climate actions is. And so we are working with the Climate Change Coalition on this. I can share with you also the homepage of this coalition. It seems that Tom Baumann would not be able to join us as he has technical problems, but here is the homepage. It's www.climatechangecoalition.io. There you will find the different members. It's now already around 160 members, and it's from looking into the different members, you will see what the different applications are for blockchain and climate action. And there are different teams, and if you click on that, you will also see it's about adaptation, it's about use cases, methodologies. A very interesting team is on cities and blockchain for climate action, led by the city of Goyang in South Korea. And our organization is the team leader for the outreach and events team. And we are with the Climate Change Coalition. We've had events, as was said, in San Francisco for the California Global Climate Action Summit. And we are also planning to have an activity during the United Nations Science, Technology and Innovation Forum in May, and then also something for the Secretary General Climate Summit in September. We have had several events on building the infrastructure for climate entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship related to the Agenda 2030 with UNIDO in Vienna. It's the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, the Productive Work for Youth program. And and we have initiatives in Africa, in Chad, with the people there bringing renewable energy technologies and water technologies and internet access based on satellite technology there. So these are our initiatives where blockchain is great enabling technology, and we hope that we will work on some of these initiatives with people here in the room. And with this, I turn over to a discussion of where you have experience on how blockchain can help climate action, or what should be done or could be done in the context also of the UN Secretary General Climate Summit in September, and then also at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP25, which will be in January in Chile. So these are our most important milestones, and we are open for cooperation, and now we are open for discussion.
I love Glow Chili, yours.
Yeah, this has been, is from a presentation. We have a representative in Burkina Faso, and when he explained how we can set up locally GLOCHA centers, global challenges, youth centers for young people to come, get access to internet, access to technology, and to finance. We then at the end finish with this image, and so it's taken from Africa, with greetings from Africa. Are there any questions? Especially Susanna, as you are one of the most experienced blockchain experts here in our team, and we are working on some initiatives together. Would you like to comment or present some of your work?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the blockchain space since about 2014, but I haven't worked. I'm not really a technical or financial expert, but I have been in the space to watch it grow over the last couple of years. I entered the blockchain world through a company called Consensus, which is now one of the world's largest blockchain incubator that are building applications and solutions on the Ethereum platform primarily. And I currently run an organization called Peace Accelerators, which is a nonprofit as well as a community. On the nonprofit side of things, it's threefold. It's about creating awareness for current issues and solutions, such as some solutions that are working towards climate action, as well as the other SDGs. And then we have an action initiative called Farms Not Arms, which is about reallocating funding for military spending and nuclear weapons for sustainable development, which we're developing with refugees in Lebanon. And then our third initiative is creating the first global holiday, which is the International Day of Peace on September 21st. And then through our community, we host a variety of local events empowering groups such as like Women's March and Black Lives Matter and March for Our Lives, etc. And then so Peace Accelerators is really about the people and catalyzing peace accelerators, not only in New York, but around the country and around the world eventually. And then we convene these peace accelerators at events. So right now I'm working with an investment bank as well. So Peace Accelerators is like my life job, and then my day job, but also my life job is working with this investment bank called Y2X, which is inspired by the Moore's Law and dedication to the law of accelerating returns. And I see Y2X is creating the investment platform that funds the solutions to accelerate peace. So we are convening these peace accelerators through events with BOMA. So BOMA, I don't know if I'm losing you guys. This is a lot of moving pieces, but BOMA is founded by Laura Stein, who's the founder of TEDx and executive director of Women's March Global. She's starting a new platform, which is primarily about ideas worth investing in, focusing on human-centered design. And at these BOMA events, we plan on co-creating solutions that can be funded through White Trucks' platform. So hopefully we can find enough solutions that are creating change on a massive scale that would be incubated through, no problem. That would be incubated through the We the People Center and this global incubator. I'm really excited to work with you on that and convene multi-stakeholders and efficiently solve some of the world's largest challenges, because there's so much waste resources and redundancies, and I think it's really important that we share information and share resources to tackle some of these problems.
Thank you very much. Adam, would you perhaps like to share some experience from what young people need in terms of support or the ICT support to help the world with the problems related to sustainable development and climate and even plastics?
I guess, yeah, hello everybody. I'm the co-director of Unity Earth, which is an organization building a network of like-minded organizations and individuals, moving towards unity and peace and impact in this sense. So I'm very particularly interested in the youth engagement piece, and we find that the young people in the world tend to have the best ideas, and they also tend to be very tech savvy. So I'm really interested in how blockchain can be utilized to put these tools in their hands. I particularly love the idea of the app, these things meeting youth where they are, I think. I'm also very interested in applications to First Nations communities, particularly as we talk about localization. We know all over the world and we share different cultures, that finding any kind of platforms that can empower small groups wherever they are in their own capacities is definitely the way to go. And then if we can then connect those localized groups together, that to me is a huge win. I see that happening. So I'm just excited to meet IAAI and the work that you're doing, and Susanna, what you're doing, and I'd love to connect with the rest of you also to see if there's any ways that we can support what you're all doing. And I'm particularly interested in watching the idea of, you were talking about the Earth Music Awards and these, leveraging the media and the music and these platforms where youth are engaged already, to then get them into the actual tools and the techniques and the platforms that will be able to enact change. So very excited about the global challenges that you're facing.
Thank you very much, Adam. Giovanni, would you like to add? I would suggest that we make a round and people tell us what the connection is with the topic climate and ICT and blockchain, if you have already any experience or what your thoughts are. And it's also a way to present our team. Giovanni is our main representative here at the UN. And
Yeah, so I'm the main representative for IAI at the United Nations, and I've really enjoyed learning more about blockchain, especially from Sue, who I've been working with for about a year at Peace Accelerators. And I'm very excited about it, and I think there's a lot of applications, especially in terms of greater security for systems, and also empowering youth and youth leadership and youth engagement. And I'm also very interested in working with youth in First Nations communities. That's something I share with Adam. And definitely very interested in finding ways to support youth enterprise, especially if there are any applications around blockchain for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Would you like to join the debate?
Sure. My name is Greta, and this is my colleague Jay. We're from the Institute of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I don't want to speak about Jay, but very new to blockchain technology, not really our area. We just came because we saw the connection with youth and with climate change. I thought it might be interesting to learn a little bit more. Our organisation works here at the UN, but we're an international NGO, and we work mainly with young women and girls. And here we work through the framework of the SDGs in women's rights, human trafficking, poverty, and that kind of areas. Yeah.
Very good. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm trying to follow along to all the technical terms and everything.
I think Greta covered it really well. I don't have any.
Okay.
I'm Edmund from Zambia. Although we came a bit late, I think it's a good topic. We just need to read a bit more. And now we can implement in Africa so much advanced in ICT, which we are doing something about climate change.
Okay, let's exchange cards then also at the end.
My name is Dan from the UN Population Division DESA. We have several projects on the world urbanization prospects, and we are interested in the city and climate change. So when I see this topic, empower cities and climate change, so I'm to come to get some background.
Wonderful. Excellent. Please.
I'm also a Kennedy member from Zambia. Like my colleague has indicated, I think it's a very interesting topic. Actually, we're talking about empowering cities and have in mind, the poor and the vulnerable. How empowerment entailed them vis-a-vis issues of climate change that are very, very critical for us in Africa, especially. I think we're talking about climate change and the environment. These are quite intertwined. So it's a very good discussion.
Yeah.
And certainly we'll share some cards.
Yeah.
Continue the conversation.
Wonderful. Ali, or would you come here, join us here? It's our youth delegate in the DPI NGO program.
Hello everyone, my name is Ali. I'm from Pakistan, but I live in New York, and I'm the youth delegate for the IAAI GLOCHA. Besides that, I work for the Friendship Ambassador Foundation. If you know about that, they do the youth assembly twice a year, so I work with them as an outreach specialist.
Wonderful. Do you have any connections with the topic ICT, information communication technology for youth empowerment?
Yes, yes. Actually, recently we have the youth assembly, and there were so many speakers, and the youth that is coming from both of the topics were interconnected. You see the technology that is growing every day, and the climate change that is affecting people, especially in the other parts of the world. So at the youth assembly, we were trying to connect both the topics, and I see the youth, they were very much interested, as they are very much technology and ICT centric.
Yeah.
And then they are concerned about the climate changes that are taking place, and it's going to affect the world in coming years more badly. So I think it is time that we should take it very seriously. We should advocate about it using youth. Doing the youth mobilization, and making the governments, especially the governments, realize that this is a serious topic. It is going to affect each and every one of us in coming 10 years. So I think this is the topic of my interest, that the help of youth mobilizing young people all across the world, we want to realize, we want to make governments realize that this is something serious, and we have to do something about it with their support.
Excellent. Thank you very much also for assuring us with our hypothesis that young people would want to take action, but they need to be empowerment and also more tools in the that bring these topics on their mobile devices, also in their social networks. So may I ask you for the continue?
Sure. So my name is Bartlett. I'm the main representative of the Parapara International. We are an umbrella organization of 38 organizations on 36 different countries. Pretty much we advocate for freedom of information, communication, and horizontal decision making. We mainly participate a lot in, I would say, online form, and focus on open source One of our representatives actually came from the Czech Republic last week. It was here. And over there, they're the third biggest party in the parliament. So we're trying actually to make change. And most of the change that we are doing is in Europe. That's where we are most actually spread out, but we're trying to spread actually to Africa and a lot of, I would say, other countries around the world. So the main things that we are focused on pretty much to have access to everyone to information, and that's pretty much related to the climate change. That in some countries we passed laws that there is free basic internet for everyone. So in those countries, again, those are mainly Europe, but the main idea is to spread it around, that basic communication that will relate also to climate change or disasters or anything like that will be able to communicate very quickly to a lot of people, and people in need will be able to get whatever they are needing in that moment to actually save or survive or do whatever they need to do. So that's in the part. In my personal life, I also work for a big organization that does a lot of financial banking and a lot of blockchain. So I'm more than happy to talk afterwards.
Yes, I would be happy to do so. Christina, another delegate of IAI to the UN.
Yes, everyone. My name is Christina. I'm a representative of IAI. Thank you very much for all of the amazing sharings. I actually have two questions for Miro. In the beginning of your speech, you said there's a leadership gap for the climate change campaign. So what are the key elements you think for the selection to be the leadership in the non-state area? And the second question, you mentioned this year COP25 is in Chile. Is that in January or March? What time?
Yes. Okay. The first question is how to really get to the leadership.
What are the key elements you think?
The key elements is to get everybody, to create an ecosystem where everybody can become engaged, because we were thinking to present our work initially as the next generation of the United Nations, but then people who are experts in this said, forget about it. You will never get the mandate, never really other organizations will assign to a new organization this leadership role. But we can create multi-stakeholder partnerships. We can create an enabling environment where all the players come together and create synergies, have develop joint information systems, joint standards, and with this this kind of ecosystem will then be the leader in this non-state actors climate governance. And it's work in progress. We will try to contribute, but it's decentralized, self-organized, so it will be not really visible who is the leader. It will be some kind of multi-stakeholder coalition, and also with the organizers of the UN Secretary General Climate Summit, how we can contribute with our initiatives in the field of music for climate action and having these new ICT tools, how we can help to create a coalition for the global climate action empowerment. And the COP will be in Chile. Usually it is in November. They call it the second session period, but for Chile asked to hold it in January. So it's, I think, the first time that a COP will be held in January, and it will be in Chile. 2020, yeah. And Joanna, also a badge holder.
Thank you very much. I'm new. I've known Miro. My name is Joanna Meyer. I've known Miro for a few years, but I'm a new ally of IAI. And I'm particularly interested in the SDGs as counterterrorism, in working with young people to make either tech hubs or to improve access to information, to beneficial information, not just information that would allow them to be radicalized, but to make full use of these specific SDGs that can act as a tool for counterterrorism. I've actually been in this very same conference room a few years ago for a meeting on African tech hubs that I think also will help with the more people have access to information, hopefully the more they're aware of the laws in their country. And so when there is maybe an election that's rigged or some kind of funny business like this, if a greater amount of people have understanding of the laws, maybe they won't be able to stop that election from continuing on like fashion. But knowledge is power, and hopefully over time, these remaining dictatorships will feel the power of the youth. I'm also very interested in water security, and so I think blockchain can also be very helpful in this. I could talk all day, but thank you.
Hi, as I mentioned before, my name is Ratna Karmakar. I am in general interested in climate change, and the title of the conference brought me in here. But everything I'm hearing is very new to me, like the relationship between blockchain and climate change. And also blockchain is something I just learned today, so I have to educate myself about how it works and how does it help climate change.
Okay, and I can share with you also the flyer of the event, where you can have then more web addresses and more resources.
Hi. My name is S.B. Karmakar. I am associated with the Economic Social Council. And I admit I have never done anything related to climate change. But I admire the people, those who are working on it. And my mind is open. Maybe in the future I'll be involved in that. But at the present, I have not done anything in that respect.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Madison Weisand. I'm an intern for the Religious of the Sacred Heart of Mary. So I work with Greta and Jen sometimes. And we do similar work. We advocate for the rights of women and girls, anti-human trafficking, eradication of poverty, similar things. I'm also an environmental studies major. So I'm, constantly looking at different solutions and strategies to mitigate climate change. So this is very interesting, and I'll definitely sort of take blockchain into consideration when I'm sort of finding solutions in my future career. So this is very interesting.
Very nice. And one of our really specialities is youth empowerment for climate action. And we will launch at the ECOSOC Youth Forum on the 8th of April our new initiative, the Global Challenges Youth Music Contest, in the context of the Secretary General Climate Summit. So please visit our homepage to learn more about this, and perhaps spreading the word also in your networks about this opportunity to engage in global climate action by producing music video clips. And as we believe that youth power is what is needed for addressing the climate crisis, and we also believe in the power of music, and this can be a very game-changing combination. Please.
Oh, is it my turn? I was like, I don't know if it was your turn or. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Farah. I'm one of the delegates from UNA USA. So the topics that you were discussing about engaging the youth was very attractive to me. And just a bit of a backstory, I'm kind of an anomaly at the UN. I'm a model, and I'm the face of Tiffany & Company Special Occasion Gems, and I've done like Versace, DKNY. My point is, every time I come here, I get somebody like you who's very like, wow, that's great. Or I get the typical UN lawyer, sort of corporate personality that just looks at you like they don't get it. And the thing is, I wasn't supposed to be a model either. I got scouted in a pre-college program. I was always a scholar. I went to school in upstate New York where nobody looked like me. If you didn't look like Britney Spears, like nobody was gonna tell you you were cute. So I just left it alone. I was like, whatever, I have other stuff. I can read and write. I played the violin. I played at Carnegie Hall. So even in fashion, I'm not like UN girl. And then when I come here, they're like, oh, that's like the fashion girl. But there is like a misogynistic tone to it, especially being a woman, being young. When you come, people don't want to listen to you anyway. And then it's almost like as women, we re-victimize each other. Like I have friends that tell me to tone down my personality or like, don't wear this when you go there. And I'm like, why? Nobody told, the UN Secretary General not to wear that suit. And it's the UN. Like we're not supposed to prejudge women on what they wear. Yet it's such a judgy atmosphere here sometimes. Like, finally,
you go,
yes,
girl.
yeah, you like smiled and you understand because I got sort of more of a personality from you. And I was like, that's the first time someone here has a personality. We have a voice. We understand social media better than like the next generation. We have basically all the power of the internet. The problem is sometimes we get an adverse reaction for having, it's like the same people that come and say, the corporate guy, and we get it in fashion too. Before as models, they wanted us to just be cute and not talk. And once they realized consumers don't like the Naomi Campbell personality, whereas before you would have to write a letter to the editor of Vogue and tell Anna Wintour like all your models are mean, and she decided whether she wanted to care or not. Now people get on the internet and it's right there when they post, when Vogue puts a model in blackface, they're like, what the hell is this? If you see what's going on with like Gucci and Burberry right now, and I'm just sitting here laughing because I'm like, as models, we've told you for years, they don't want to hire us as people of color. And they had to make a blackface sweater for you people to think that the rest of the company was racist. So it's like we have voices, but sometimes the audience isn't always as receptive. And then what ends up happening, and I see it with my peers, I'm always the only one that's like, no, lobby your congressman, like don't give up. And then they just get like the forget about it attitude. So I wanted to say personally that this was one of the most engaging sessions that I've been in. You were very receptive. You went around and actually took an interest in every person that was here. And you got to sort of get and understand, especially again, being a woman, being someone young, it's intimidating. You feel like, well, it's just like modeling. When I started that, I wasn't like a blonde Russian, so I didn't fit in there either. I was like, I don't look like any of these people anywhere. But it's all about the UN. I feel like it's getting in where you fit in and finding your voice. So if we could find a way to maybe make it less scary and with the music contest, that was a really that was the first thing I heard about that, and anything that I can do to and at the UNA to maybe help amplify that, because half the time it's also young people, they need to take responsibility as well to make the effort. The information is so readily available. I tell my friends to like, don't give up. Just keep searching, keep using the internet, keep using technology, social media. Yeah, you get the trolls on it and it's annoying, but you don't have to like at every single mean comment. Being a model, I get mean comments every day. Like I'm getting them now. Like while I'm not checking my phone. Somebody already said my face was weird, I'm pretty sure. But it's fine. It's all about that word, empowering. It was the first time I heard it the entire conference and it resonated. So thank you. And thank you, because you're just so smart and beautiful, and you're stylish and you're different. Like you remind me kind of myself, but that it's okay. You don't have to suppress your personality, because everybody tells me that before. I wouldn't have even shared this. I would have just done what I thought everybody else would do, be like, Farah, and thank you for blockchain information. But
because of your presentation as well, you made it a safe space. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you've added very valuable perspectives. Yeah.
Thank you for being you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I annoy people, I'm pretty sure, but thank you.
And maybe hear also your thoughts.
Yes.
I'm Allie from the World Food Program, and being with food security, we're quite interested in climate action and discussions around the UN.
Yeah, very good. And World Food Program is also using some very interesting use cases for blockchain, for SDGs related programs. Yeah, so that's we know now who we are, and you know about our planned activities and past activities, and you are kindly invited to connect with us, with me or with my the colleagues that have presented themselves, especially our youth delegate here. And you are also the youth delegate or co-chair of the youth subcommittee. What is it about? Yeah.
I've been just recently announced, about to be announced as the co-chair for the youth subcommittee for the United Nations Civil Society Conference that is going to take place in Salt Lake City in August this year.
Wonderful. We are proud of you. Yeah, and as I said, please visit our homepage, www.glotcha.info, or if you search for us on the internet, you can, on social media, you can use the hashtag Glotcha. And on the 8th of April, there will be this launch of our music initiative, which is also, it sounds for some people strange. What does music have to do with all this technical work related to climate change? But it's really the way to connect with the people in an area that is dear to them. Because climate change is very often so much a brain topic and so distant topic, and young people don't know how to relate to it. But if we approach them with music and this peer-to-peer learning dimension that is involved in this, then we can reach them. And our app that we are developing will also have as the minimum viable product the function to watch the entries of the competition and to vote. But in the next phase, this app will have low carbon lifestyle support and advice, but also the possibility to document what everybody is doing. And in the third phase, it will be also one way to get this certified climate action impact, which then can be monetized or used for games. So music is the beginning, music is magic, and on the 8th of April, this new milestone will be placed, and you are welcome to join us and also produce music video clips if you if you have this talent and inspire the world for innovative and ambitious climate action. Thanks for having been with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's finish the transmission.